My brother had 2 kids with his ex by the time he was 21. He stuck around for a couple of years, but when they broke up, he left the kids too. He paid no child support, made no effort to keep in touch with the kids, didn't check if they were okay, nothing. The rest of my family let the relationship drop, but I, 38 male, was the exception. I stayed part of my niece and nephew's lives. I still have a good relationship with them today, and they're close to my kids. 5 years ago, my brother got married, and now he's expecting baby number 3 with his wife. After settling into family life, he started to think more about his oldest 2 and made the decision to reach out to them. He was met with silence initially, and then after speaking to his ex, he got a brief message from his kids that they're still mad and hurt that he left. They had contact for about a month and it was sporadic. He asked if they could meet in person and the kids said no, but they said they'd do a video call with him one time and that was it. This happened 2.5 months into their reconciliation. At some point during this, he mentioned wanting them to meet his wife and other kids. They told him that would not happen and they didn't want to reconcile with him. My brother was surprised. He had thought that their opening up to him about being angry and hurt was a sign that they were willing to work through that. They told him it would be one thing if he hadn't settled down and started a family all over again. But the fact that he did that and then reached out to them was too much for them, and they wanted nothing to do with the family he created now. This led to a back and forth where he said they have younger siblings. They told him very clearly they would never accept or acknowledge them as siblings, and they would never accept him as their dad, and he needed to move on. After the call, I spoke to my niece and nephew who reached out to me. They said it was good to close that door and have the decision be their own. They felt like they got closure. My brother wasn't prepared for that outcome, and his wife was furious that my niece and nephew rejected them for existing. She started bad-mouthing the kids at my parents' house in front of all of us. My brother told her to stop, but she told him they should be ashamed of themselves for reacting like spoiled brats who don't get their way and punishing innocent children when they're supposed to be grown adults now. I told sister-in-law she should be ashamed of herself for talking like that about the kids my brother abandoned and didn't give a second thought to until he had settled down with her and their kids. I told her she should learn to be a mature adult and accept that his actions had consequences, and this was one of them. Cue her being offended and saying I had no right to speak to her that way, and some of my family telling me that I should have said nothing. Am I the idiot? She told him they should be ashamed of themselves for reacting like spoiled brats who don't get their way. Oh yeah, those unnecessary histrionics when their dad completely acted like they didn't exist for years. I mean, come on, kids. Then you call her out in nicer language than she used, and she says you offended her and you have no right to speak to her that way? Yeah, sure. Not the idiot at all. Your brother's an idiot who married one. Exactly. Your brother, his wife, and the rest of your family who supported him being a deadbeat dad are the idiots. Your niece and nephew seem very level-headed and mature. My family telling me I should have said nothing? Doing nothing is not a neutral act in this situation. This is such a good point. It baffles me that the grandparents would abandon the relationship with their grandkids and then allowing them to be spoken of like it's blatantly malicious on sister-in-law's part, but to say nothing means you're giving your tacit approval of what's being said about your grandkids. Well, some people like to enable bad behavior rather than reprimand. He didn't support those children. He never spoke to them till he got a replacement family, probably hoping for free babysitting, while their mother had to work hard to raise and support the kids on her own. I tell your sister-in-law, okay, well, good luck when he gets bored and abandons you alone with no child support or anything for his new family. Truth hurts, I guess. I'd be worried if I was her. He's abandoned kids before. Who's to say he won't do it again? I'm male 43, a single dad to 2 twin daughters, 18, Jess and Amy, not their real names. Their mom hasn't been in their lives since they were about 6. As a result, we're a close family, and the girls have an extremely tight bond. They couldn't be more different as people, though. Jess is a big extrovert. She loves to party, is out every weekend, and has a boyfriend and a big circle of friends. On the other hand, Amy's introverted and shy, and spends most of her time studying or reading. They still remain really close, and I hope that Jess brings Amy out of her shell more and Amy encourages Jess to study more than she currently does. Last weekend, Jess had been invited to a party with a group of friends. Amy hadn't been, and I suggested to Jess to let Amy come as well. I thought it would be good for her to socialize after working hard throughout the week. Jess mentioned it to Amy, and when Amy asked me, I told her she should go. They both got ready that evening. Jess picked out Amy's outfit, and it was great to see some sisterly bonding. At around 2 a.m., I heard a big thud downstairs waking me up. Jess was carrying Amy, who clearly was very, very intoxicated. When I asked what happened, Jess told me that Amy had gotten carried away drinking, as she's not used to alcohol at all. It had a bad effect on her. Jess told me Amy was talking to everyone, flirting with boys, taking her top off to expose her bra, drinking shots, and essentially nothing like her character. Jess took her away at 2 a.m. to come home. While Amy was vomiting in the toilet, I got annoyed at Jess for allowing her to get in that state, as she knew Amy didn't drink, and Jess had a responsibility to look out for her when she was on her own. Jess said Amy's an adult and she can do what she likes, which got me extremely irate. And I shouted at Jess as I knew Amy would not have been in that state if Jess wasn't encouraging her to drink and party. Amy's been extremely embarrassed and hungover since, and has said she's never planning to socialize with Jess or at school again. I've told Jess I'm disappointed in her for allowing this, which she said is entirely unfair. Now she's being distant with both Amy and me. Part of me feels this is justified, as I know Jess would have had an influence on Amy, while the other part of me does know she's an adult who should make her own choices. So, am I the idiot? Note that we're in the UK, where the legal drinking age is 18. You are the idiot. You also encouraged her to go to an adult party with alcohol, not just Jess. Amy is 100% an adult, in the eyes of UK law at least, and can make her own adult decisions. Even if Jess encouraged her to go overboard, which you have no proof of, Amy is still old enough to make her own choices. Also, you asked Jess to include Amy. You can't expect Jess to babysit her adult sister. You should be sitting Amy down and having a supportive conversation about limits and when to stop. Dumping the blame on Jess is an unreasonable reaction. You're punishing Jess for doing what you asked. Jess did what a good friend does. She got her home. It is completely unreasonable for you to be mad at Jess for Amy's drinking. You owe Jess an apology and a sincere thank you. You need to talk to Amy about moderation and safety when socializing. Also, you owe Amy an apology. People need to stop acting like there's something wrong with being an introvert. My daughter's been best friends with my friend's daughter, Sarah, since kindergarten. They're now in middle school. This year, Sarah's gotten quite thin, and her mom has told me she isn't eating. My daughter backed this up and said that she picked up her food at school. I thought it was an eating disorder at the time and told my friend to take her to the doctor. My friend needed to leave for a work trip this week and asked me to watch over her. No big deal. She'll stay over for the week. The first night I made meatloaf, and she ate it. She didn't get sick. She would eat anything I made for the rest of the week with no issue. She even came back for seconds for most meals. At the end of the week, she asked me when my food didn't make her sick. Apparently, she only eats TV dinners at home, which make her feel like crap. The school food also sometimes makes her sick, so she's cautious about it. My guess is that there's an allergen in preservative foods. She needs to get checked out. I dropped her off, pulled my friend to the side, and told her everything. I told her that she really needed to cook and take her to get her allergy checked out. She was not happy I said this and basically called me a jerk for overstepping. Am I the idiot? Should I apologize? Not the idiot. She isn't eating because the TV dinners are making her sick. The solution is for her not to eat those TV dinners. That means Mom must cook. Mom got defensive because she knows she's being a generally crappy parent in this aspect. She can batch cook, crock pot cook, meal kit cook, or find fresh pre-made meals. She cannot just let her kids starve or be ill all the time. Can you send food with your daughter during the week so the kid has dinner that night? Most parents don't take lightly being told that they're not doing a good job of taking care of their child. Most of the time they're at least trying, and it feels like you're failing when you get something wrong. My partner doesn't cook, and if I didn't, it would most likely be frozen dinners, etc. Not everyone has the capacity or capability to cook properly. I'm not saying they don't need to take better care of their kid. It's just why they would be upset. Aside from diagnosed weaponized incompetence, what would cause you not to have the capacity or capability to cook something? That's like saying, I can't use a washing machine or brush my teeth. Some people don't like to cook. When you have a kid, you don't get the luxury to fall back on incompetence as a defense. Imagine if you said, I don't like taking my kid to the doctor because it's too confusing. I see they're dangerously sick or injured, etc., but I just don't like it, so I can't do it. How would that hold up? I fully agree with you on the point that this woman isn't taking responsibility when she chooses to have a child. She left her daughter with her friend for a week, and she thinks OP is overstepping? Looks like Mommy Dearest needs to get over herself and do what her child needs her to do. OP, you didn't overstep. You solved why she's sick. The mother is probably embarrassed or ashamed. Hopefully she gets her looked at for allergies. If she doesn't start feeding her child food that she can actually tolerate, I would be calling CPS. I, 33 female, am an OBGYN, and I've been traveling around different parts of the world on missions with MSF. Long story short, it had been 15 months since I had been home. For some context, I decided to join due to a depressive episode after my girlfriend broke up with me, but I ended up loving it, and I just kept going on missions for 15 months. My ex-girlfriend is a good friend of my sister-in-law, Penny. I decided to take some time off and return for a while before deciding what's next for me. I returned 2 weeks ago. My brother, I'll call him Harry, 34, and his wife, Penny, 28, are expecting their first child. They scheduled a baby shower for yesterday, and Penny invited me. Family members and some of Harry's old friends were asking me questions about different missions, why I left for charity while I could earn a fortune here, whether it was hard being a woman in those areas, etc. I gave them short answers, but they asked me more questions. Penny suddenly asked me to talk one-on-one in the middle of the party. She told me I was monopolizing everyone's attention and taking up everyone's time. No one was paying attention to the purpose of this gathering due to my being there. I apologized and asked her if she wanted me to leave. She said I had been enough of a distraction and told me to please leave early. I left about a half an hour after this talk. So far, everything is good. The next day, Harry called me and told me I had been a rude guest the day before because I had ruined their first child's baby shower. He said I should have kept quiet or, at the very least, left the party the moment Penny asked me to. Was I an idiot? All you did was travel around the world, providing much-needed medical care to those in need. Your sister-in-law is the first person in history to have reproduced, so I can't believe people thought what you did was even worth discussing. Honey, you are not the idiot. Fellow medical professional, you responded to inquiries about your work and travels and kept the responses nice and late. To chastise you because they didn't expect anyone to discuss anything other than the parents-to-be is wrong. Others enjoying your company should not diminish their celebration. If they were bothered by your presence, they need to address it internally. P.S. I did mission trips to Guatemala and Peru and had amazing experiences. Thank you for working with underserved communities. Boy, this must have been a very boring baby shower if OP's mere presence and conversation about work were enough to distract the guest. It's not like you were juggling monkeys while standing on your head. You were answering questions. OP, thank you for your work. My wife, 36 female, and I, 35 male, have been married for 7 years and have a kindergarten-age son. My wife has 4 siblings, 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Her brothers live far away, and she isn't very close to them. Her sisters live within 2 hours of us, and the 3 of them are very close. Both of her sisters have 2 kids. Her youngest sister, Jen, 25, has 2 toddlers. Jen, her husband, and their kids visited us this past weekend for Memorial Day. We have 3 bedrooms in our house: our master, our son's room, and a smaller guest room. My wife decided on her own that we would let Jen and her family have our bedroom. Apparently, Jen's kids aren't the best sleepers at home, and if they're in an unfamiliar place, it's even worse. So my wife offered Jen our room so all of them could be in one room, and my wife and I would sleep in the guest room. It turns out that by bad sleepers, Jen meant that her kids wake up multiple times a night and then wake up for good at 5 a.m. every single day. I don't know about anyone else, But the last thing I want to do on a weekend is be woken up by a screaming baby at 5 a.m. 3 days in a row. It just wasn't the crying baby, but Jen and her husband would also be running around getting whatever the baby needed. The commotion woke our son, then woke my wife and me up. Every day at 5 a.m., I spent the entire weekend tired and cranky. To make things worse, Jen and her husband would nap together whenever one of their kids was napping, which left me and my wife to watch their non-napping kid. I complained to my wife about being tired, and she told me that her sister and brother-in-law need the rest more than we do because this is their life every day, so we should help them get at least a little break. But by the time Jen and her family left on Monday, I only wanted to sleep, which I did immediately after they left. My wife got upset with me for napping because our son was also tired and cranky, fighting her on everything. She woke me up so that she could take a break. I later told her that the next time her sister wants to come visit, they need to get a hotel because their kids' sleeping habits are clearly disruptive to our entire family. She told me that she isn't telling her sister to fork out hundreds for a hotel room when we have the space for them in our house. She also said that Jen's kids will become better sleepers as they get older. I told her that every decision she makes prioritizes her sister over me and our son, and she got defensive and told me I was being a jerk. Maybe I'm far enough removed from the baby stage that I've blocked it out, but I don't remember ever being this disruptive when we were guests in their house. They're supposed to come visit us again for the 4th of July, and I'm already dreading it. So your wife made all these decisions without your input and then wanted you and your son to take the brunt of exhaustion on top of it. No, thank you. It's okay if she's willing to make that sacrifice, but she's deciding that for you and your son too, and neither of you are willing participants. I would think the more alarming thing would be that your wife plans to make these visits a regular thing. That kind of inconsideration would not fly in my home. You are not the idiot. Your wife should go visit her sister instead. Oh, Pete, you don't have room for them. You had to give up your room and sleep in the guest room. If she insists, tell her that you won't be babysitting the non-napping kid next visit. If she wants to torture herself to help her sister, she can, but you won't. If she wants to push it, tell her that you and your son will be staying at a hotel and she and her sister can have a nice weekend, since this is apparently her priority. You and the kiddo can have a fun daddy-son weekend. You obviously have the right to refuse to host them again, but I don't think it's the best move. Your in-laws weren't trying to be bad guests. They just have small kids, and many small kids are just bad sleepers. Your wife was trying to be a kind and gracious host and doesn't mind dealing with a little unpleasantness because she loves her sister. At the end of the day, your wife's opinion of you matters a lot more than that of internet strangers, and I'm sure you'd want her to find a way to compromise if it were something that was important to you instead.